whole view on the generational diversity piece around how different generations operate and what they think is in some ways misconstrued. There is, the stereotypical ones where, we pigeonhole certain generations in a certain way, but they're not necessarily all behaving in the same way. It's more about the mindset, which goes back to your earlier point in the beginning of this episode where you spoke about how important that mindset shift is, and which is one of the reasons you've become so successful. It's because you really trained and worked on that mindset, which again brings me to how we start to get part of this evolution, because the future of work is not just about technology. We know it's about different aspects of our lives, both personal and professional. And that now brings me to almost, the next big question, which is, in your opinion, how do you then think people can sort of focus on their professional as well as personal development? But it doesn't have to just be centered around technology, because that's one of the key problems as well, is that we want to work for technology versus letting technology work for us. And so that is why the human aspect of it is becoming a bit more delineated and siloed from what the purpose of technology actually has been. So what's your opinion on that?
I definitely think that we need technology, we need balance in life, and I think that there are a lot of things that aren't going to go away. I mean, when you talked about mindset, it's so fun looking back. So for example, I had imposter syndrome when I finally got to UCLA, but I didn't even know what it was at the time, for example. But I was sitting in a room, I got in this undergraduate honors anthropology program, and I remember one day sitting around this boardroom table, a conference room table. It was 8 students, myself, and the professor in this exclusive honors anthropology program, and we were all doing undergraduate research projects. And I remember one day looking around and having this hit in my stomach, dread, feeling every single person in here is better and smarter than I am. And I remember clearly sitting right next to the professor, and I thank goodness that professor recognized that. His name was Dr. Hammond, and he encouraged me a little bit. We ended up having coffee one day, and he basically, not in one coffee, but over a series of them, let me know not only did I belong there, but I should be able to excel there. And so he helped me get through my imposter syndrome, and I ended up winning best undergraduate research at UCLA in 1992 or 3 or what it was. And it was 100% because of that professor. Took the time to get outside of his track. And later, after we became friends, I'd graduated by this time, he ended up saying to me once, the sad part is every quality hour he spends with a student is an hour against his career, with the whole publish and perish thing and things like that. And it was pretty wild. But so he took that time to help me get over something and that changed literally the whole trajectory of my life, which is awesome. So I definitely think with all of the technologies we have around us, we need to keep our eyes open as humans and see that person who needs something extra, who needs help. And so Dr. Hammond took that time to have coffee with me and become a friend outside of class with me to help me get over what I know now is imposter syndrome. And also, when I think of imposter syndrome, I still to this day feel it sometimes. I spoke in Beverly Hills recently to a group of very high net worth individuals, and I was super nervous. I'm not at the same place they are monetarily. Do I belong in the same room as them, right? And I love that when I feel imposter syndrome now, that nervousness, I'm exactly where I want to be, because I'm around people that I want to get to know. I'm around people that challenge me intellectually or whatever way it is. And so when I get imposter syndrome now, I celebrate that fear, that angst, that anxiety as, oh my gosh, I'm challenging myself. I'm exactly where I want to be, which is pretty exciting. But yeah, so I definitely love that when people look for others that they can, help. And I have now since I taught in the university for many years, and I recognized certain students that needed that extra thing. So I've passed it on. I've had built relationships with students to help them break through whatever it was that they needed to. And it's been rewarding to be able to do that.
Erik,
And I love that.
Yeah, it's a fantastic idea. And I really want to, press it a little harder, especially because you have a fantastic background about publishing, about books, about emerging authors. You yourself is a fantastic author, right? So you sit at this intersections of ideas and, authors, you want to make their first book. There's a market demand around it. So you have a very unique perspective. And then there is the AI wrapper around everything, right? And AI is nothing, as an AI would not be as productive if the data behind is not productive, as in it's not clean. If it's garbage, then you have a garbage output coming out. So I really want to kind of marry these concepts together and take your view, because you get manuscripts, you get pitches from authors that comes to see. What do you feel are the biggest shifts in people, and what are are they thinking about, topics, and that's not even in the radar maybe 3 years back. Even 3 years is a very long time. What are the most interesting topics that are emerging, and especially in your publishing lens, that you feel needs to be spoken about, needs to be published, and authors are really keen to write about them?
Yeah, and one of them is just, I think for so long, customer service, for example, there hasn't been a giant shakeup for years and years and years in things like customer service. We do things, sure, they evolve slowly and change a little bit here and there, but for the most part, I think a lot of the paradigms are almost the same. So quite a few of the best books are when somebody has an industry and realizes how a technology can entirely change something, not just change whether we do, X and Y in the same lane, but how do we accomplish things by actually creating an entirely new lane? And so those are wonderful. But the AI, not everything is great for sure. When I more often now get manuscripts by people who think they're ready to publish that aren't there because they didn't put in the work. I rely on AI for outlining. I rely on AI as a conversation partner while I'm writing. When I'm doing long form writing, if I'm going to write a blog post, for example, I might use AI to actually give me some content, but I always go through and redo it. I never will just do a single prompt and let that fly. I still want it to be, even though my AI even knows my personality now, I don't want to do a single prompt, even for something as small as a blog post. But I get manuscripts and it's super easy now. I've done it long enough to tell. And the hardest things to work with are when somebody wrote something through an AI system and basically said, make it more readable, add, whatever it is. And there are a few funny tells like M dashes. What stinks is I used to love M dashes. And now I generally try and avoid them because so many people know that that's an AI tell now, that it's been done with AI. And it often is. And also another one is I'll get something and you've got these wonderful ideas that should be a one thought paragraph and it's chopped into 6 paragraphs, often one sentence paragraphs. So I'll go back to the author and I'll say, have you run this through an AI system? And they're like, oh yeah. I said, do you have the original? Because it would be easier for me to give a high level advice on the manuscript, have them do a rewrite tweak and then send to an editor than to rehumanize it by going through what AI has done and having to literally line by line backspace, which I've done. I've done to full 300-page books where I've literally had to backspace 2,000 times to join sentences into paragraphs. And so it's so much easier to work with a human product and edit it and make it go to the next level than to rehumanize it and then have to go to the next level. And so definitely I find people thinking that AI is the way to write a book easily. It's not. We're not there yet. And I hope we never get to that point where AI is doing the thinking part of our writing. AI should be doing the organization and bolstering in some ways too, but not doing the writing itself. So it's trickier. And sadly, it's growing. It's quickly growing where the quality of manuscript I'm getting in general, there are still good ones that aren't done with that, but I have to sift through, I don't know, a significant portion of bad manuscripts versus good ones. Even 2 years ago, that wasn't the case.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing, right? Is now you're going to find, every second person is an AI educator, but that's also because they are a big AI user. And education comes from content writing. But now it's kind of coming to that point where you have to decipher whether this is authentic or whether it's manufactured. And, I'm doing a lot of writing now, as both of you know, and I can clearly see the errors. And so it's something you just can't take for granted because there are concepts which actually us as people know, and it's not based on prompt. It's not based on putting in the right prompt. It's also based on the information that AI is able to collect. It hasn't reached that stage of perfection. So same as you, I hope we never try and create AI to replace human thinking and writing, because then we've not served our purpose over here, because then what is our purpose if that's the aim? If we want to just create so-called sentient AI tools or robots, because then what's the space for us? So no, I love what you've said, and also more importantly, how you're using it to still keep your authenticity and also help others think about their authentic selves as well. We are almost reaching the end, and I just wanted to pick your brain on the books that you've read, and you've listed some fantastic books out there. One of my favorites was definitely the Chinua Achebe one. I actually read that when I was in school, and I did not get it. I had to read it a second time. So it is a fantastic book, and if anyone loves reading in our audience, I would encourage them to pick that up. Which of your books, that you've written, as well as the ones that you've read, which one has had or has a special place in your heart that's really inspired you, that you think everyone should at least read once or even part of it in their lives?
Yeah. So I've got actually a short read. It's, I think, 99 cents on Amazon called that I wrote. And so it's a 15-minute read, I think it is. So it's like 13 pages. Wow. And that one's called, Milan Kundera wrote a book, The Unbearable Lightness of Meaning, which is a book about existentialism, life, etc. I did a play on his book title called The Magical Lightness of Being. And that's one that in 15 minutes shows my journey of self-actualization from a awkward, young, 6-year-old kid who is shy and anxious about life to somebody who's now been to 99 countries. In next week, I'll be to my 100th country. Bhutan will be my 100th country next week, actually, which is kind of exciting.
Definitely.
But so that one is super fun. A 99-cent quick read about that. And it's a fun play on existentialism and optimism. I'm an existentialist at heart, but nihilism is not for me. And so I'm an optimistic one. So that's fun. But my first book, Ordinary to Extraordinary, I'm so glad that took off. And I'm not glad it took off because it gave me a stage to speak on. It did other things. I'm glad it took off because the whole idea, again, is there's nothing extraordinary about me. I'm an absolutely average person, but I've spoken in front of a live crowd of over 250,000 people. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty extraordinary. I didn't do anything extraordinary to get to that stage, just choosing to do extraordinary things. And that's available to everybody. So that's one, Ordinary to Extraordinary. And there's a follow-up with that called Explore. And the big difference is, and they're all true first-person narratives from my life. And you're talking about books. I highly recommend the book by Emily Esfahani Smith called The Power of Meaning. And I framed my first book on, for her, she says, everybody's chasing happiness, and that's wrong. Happiness should be a byproduct. We need meaning, and meaning has 4 pillars: belonging, storytelling, purpose, and transcendence. Purpose is doing something bigger than yourself. Belonging is having a group of course. So I framed my first book about how did I experience these pillars of meaning through these experiences. And then the second book called Explore is about also Emily Esfahani Smith. Other aspects of meaning are growth and love. So how did love affect my success in these different instances? And how did having a goal affect my growth or my level of meaning in these instances? So those are some books. As far as co-authored book projects, there's one called The Successful Spirit, which it's basically what separates somebody who goes to the Olympics versus somebody who's equally hardworking and smart who doesn't. Or one entrepreneur sells a company for $100 million and the one next door doesn't. And they're always continually working hard, but they're equally smart and hardworking. And it came down to mindset. And the fun thing is on that one, 4 of the authors wrote right before competing in the Tokyo Olympics, and 3 of them got medals. And then in the next Olympics, one of the authors of that, Gabby Thomas is her name, she got 3 golds in running for the US. And that was the book that really tipped the scales of building a readership of people who were really desperate for quality mindset material about certain topics. So that book particularly pushed me in the direction of mindset. And then the first AI book was called The AI Mindset. And then that one led to more things about AI. And usually I'll stay in one small space for a little bit, like productivity. I'll be in the productivity space for a few books, and then I move into, something different. But AI, there's so much buzz about it. And there's such a need for people to understand what's happening with it. I've done more than a few, and there's no end in sight yet with the AI books because people need all these different perspectives, like the perspective you provided, Sue, in AI. And there's so many people who need to see what's happening with AI just to not miss the AI buzz.
I agree. No, that's pretty incredible. Yeah. Sorry, Chi, go ahead.
No, you got me thinking, Erik, and I wanted to be one of the key takeaways from this podcast as well, because we are talking about future of work, we are talking about human in the loop, we're talking about how it's not replacing us, actually augmenting us. And in the books that you're writing yourself, and so you're also writing around AI, what do you think, our audience would love to know that these are the books that are getting written on about the skills that people think that they will need to survive and excel in this new future of work era. So what are your takes on it? And so please jump in as well along with Erik.
Yeah, I think, and this is coming from personal experience too, I think no matter what technologies we're using, staying in lanes that we're passionate about is really important. And I wouldn't say go take art school classes and get $200,000 in debt for that. However, I am saying when at all possible, follow things that you are passionate about. And if you're passionate about art, figure out how to get through school without getting into debt, because you don't want to start with a huge burden in a field that's hard to succeed in, right? So I think every single student, you can find your way into the things that you're passionate about, but we can't be stupid about it either, if that makes sense. And also, I think balancing our what we're passionate about in work and something outside of it. If we're only focused on things that towards our work, I think that it's a really good way for burnout, and it's a really good way to not find meaning in your life. But having a balance of self, for me, there's 3 important things. There's 4 actually. There's God included. So including God, there's 4. For me, me, I want to balance my work, my family, God, and myself. And a lot of people leave that self out. So when I climb mountains, we mentioned that earlier on, that's selfish. I'm leaving for 4 weeks to be away from my family on a mountain in Nepal next week. And is that selfish? Absolutely. But does my wife and do my kids know that I'm a better father and a better husband when I am present because I'm able to go out and do these extreme things? And then again, the answer is absolutely. And so that's why it works. And a lot of people, they, especially in ages when they have kids, and Chi, you mentioned you've got a 9-year-old, it's harder to do that. We devote ourselves, especially for a career person, a career woman particularly, it's hard, where you've got a career, you've got a family that needs you, and there's nothing left for the self. But we need to remember the self. And it's selfish in a way that makes us better to other people we're around.
I resonate with that so deeply because what you're talking about is not even selfish. It's called self-care. And it is the most underrated capability we can give to ourselves, or the gift that we could give to ourselves. You know, it's interesting because I've been speaking to so many people, despite using AI, everyone's just busy and don't have time at all to do anything extra, that we've also forgotten how to breathe. And that alone is self-care, you know, taking a moment, 5 minutes in your day just to breathe so that you can have more clarity and you can have more energy to perform the tasks that you do. And it could be anything from professional to personal. And so it's that self-care. And if it means, you know, for me, it means going and having a massage every week. For you, it's going and doing this activity that challenges you mentally and physically, but, you know, brings you out stronger. And, you know, it could be anything, right? But it's a moment for yourself. And that is not selfish at all because it makes you perform better as well. And it makes you better for the people who are around you, be it family or friends or co-workers, whoever it may be. And I think no one is valuing that to give themselves that gift. And, you know, being able to do that is so powerful, which again now brings me to this absolutely fantastic journey that you're going on to. And I am not a climber, I'm not a runner, I'm not an athlete by any means, but I love hearing these stories because there's an internal resilience and an internal power that we don't challenge ourselves to actually try and perform in. And so I'd love to hear how you've sort of now brought that as a part of your life, you know, having kids and doing all these fantastic things by giving back to so many of us. How do you now bring yourself to do this phenomenal experience?
Yeah, and one is just choosing to. Everybody, there are a million reasons why not to choose to do hard things. And so it's just a matter, I think, of choosing to. And when I'm at the top of a mountain, so this mountain I'll do coming up, it's 20,075 feet, and so pretty tall. And other ones I've done, like in South America, Aconcagua is almost 23,000 feet. At the top, it took 17 days to get there to the summit, or 14 to the summit, 17 total. And at the top of the mountain, you know, you're sick, you're miserable because of the altitude, because of the fatigue. It's horrible. You want to stop, but you choose not to sometimes. And, you know, and sometimes there's medical emergencies. I mean, I saw multiple people helicoptered off the mountain with altitude illness. One guy died on that trip, not on part of my team, but he was on the climb at the same time as I was. But these challenges really make us boil down to what's important. When I'm nearing the top of the mountain and when I reach the summit, I'm thinking about my family. I'm thinking about the things that are important. I'm not thinking about what kind of car I want to drive. I'm not thinking about what's in the bank account. I'm thinking about what's at the core, the most things. And I'm also humbled because it took everything. I'm thinking particularly of Aconcagua. It took everything I had to, you know, get to that summit, and I gave it. And so I was just naked with raw emotion at the top because of giving all of that and not stopping. And so that's one of the reasons I love it, is because, and I don't know, and it scares me. The planning scares me because you never know if you're going to make it. And I've failed on mountains. I spent tons of money and a whole year preparing to climb Denali, the highest peak in North America. It's in Alaska. And you know what? I passed out above the crux of the climb. I made the hardest part of the climb and I passed out and I was with guides. And so it was a hard turnaround. And so I spent 17 days. I was supposed to be 21, but I didn't make it. 17 days on the ice trying to summit, and I didn't make it, you know? And you know what? That was still a great experience. I want to go back, which is kind of a bummer because it takes so much time and energy to do it, but I do. But I would trade that same experience, even with failure, to get what I did get out of being 17 days on the ice up there. So I think the more we challenge each us, we break through the fear in things in life. It helps things like breaking through the fear and work-related things a lot easier.
That is absolutely, you know, immensely inspiring because, yeah, you know, we're entering a world of a lot of them. And so with that comes us having to challenge ourselves and do this. And when you told me about it, I was like, wow, you know, this is just phenomenal. You know, I have a lot of admiration and respect for people who take on these things because I know I can't do it. I don't even think I could challenge myself to do it.
Well, yeah, and that's the thing, Sue. It doesn't have to be for me. Yeah, for me, it's a mountain, but yes, you can. Yeah. And for somebody, it's the fear of speaking to other people. So the mountain might be challenging themselves to have 10 conversations with a stranger in a month. And so when you're sitting down at a cafe and you see the person next to you that's sitting alone and just saying, hey, do you know what time it is? Oh man, nice day, isn't it? Starting a conversation with a random stranger 10 times in a month. That might be a huge mountain for somebody because they're overcoming fear, that fear of making a connection of somebody they don't know. Another person who is scared, like sometimes if I ask people to challenge themselves, I ask them to ask for a discount getting coffee for no reason. Like they're a whatever coffee shop you go to and you say, can I have 10% off my coffee? And it's so, because that's so scary to ask for something from people, but it gets people past that fear. And usually they'll laugh and say no. And sometimes like, sure, why not? Right? Because I've done it multiple times now to challenge myself. And I've used this as an exercise with other people. And sometimes it's reading a book in another language. Maybe you're just not quite there, but challenge yourself to read a full book in a language that you're learning or that you don't know perfectly yet. That could be the challenge there. So it's finding your own challenge. It doesn't have to be a physical challenge for sure.
And I think that's a very powerful, point when it comes to personal development is to be able to challenge ourselves, because when we personally challenge ourselves, we can then do things we never thought we could. And that's where it's really important. But yeah.
Yeah. And it's going to be a very key aspect, Erik and Sue, when we are entering into a new future of work with AI disrupting or helping us co-create new things. It's your personal challenge to overcome those fears and be the better version of yourself in the next couple of years or even the next day. Who knows?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, with that, thank you so much, Erik. It's been an immense pleasure to chat with you today. I've learned more new things about you. And if anything, I'm more inspired by all the work you're doing, not just for us, but also how you inspire your own self to keep moving forward and doing new things, but also challenging the status quo. And that is so immensely important. With that, I'd love to thank you as well, because I know there's a massive time difference between all of us. And you've stayed up for us to share your wisdom and share your experiences. And we are immensely grateful for that. But yes, if anyone would like to contact you, I assume LinkedIn might be the first place they would capture you. And yeah, we would love to hear how your wonderful experience goes next week and when you finish it. So please do share your experience, and we'd love to share that with our audience as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you, Chi. It was great speaking with both of you. I love what you're doing, so keep up the good work. I'm totally inspired by both of you as well.
Oh, thank you very much.
So much. Means a lot. All the best for your climb.
Yeah, all the best. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.